Greetings and salutations. So good to see you again. I am Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist, and this is another episode of Sound Mind. Thank you so much for your tuning in, for your support, not just for Sound Mind, but for all of the shows that we have here on Hope TV. This is a special episode because it's the final episode of season 7. And I personally just want to take a couple of moments out to thank you all, really just from the core of my heart. Thank you to the Most High God, just for the blessing. You brought me a mighty long way, Lord, and I just want to publicly give you your praise and make sure that your glory is not shared by any way, shape, form, or fashion, Lord. So, Father, I thank you in the presence, Lord, of the thousands and millions that are watching, Father God. The obvious leader, shepherd of this family, Dr. E. Dewey Smith, for his leadership, and I also pay homage to Reverend Shepherd, the pastor that I grew up with. Travelers Rest would not be where I am today had it not been for that man and the capacity in which he led this church. But then also to the production crew here. A lot of people I want to thank, but I'm going to save that for the end because I just really want to dive in and wrap up our series here on the 4 generations of a narcissist. And we've done over 2 episodes at this point. This will be the 3rd and final. Just bringing it all together in terms of making sure that you understand that are associated with it. Okay, so a quick recap. In the first episode where we addressed this, which was 2 episodes ago, we addressed the history, the relevance, why I chose to address this based on wanting to educate you all and how the term narcissist is being used as a pop culture mental health term. Basically, a pop culture mental health term is a term that you hear a lot of on social media, and people have just taken the word narcissist and narcissism and have just ran with it, and it does not meet any of the clinical mandates, okay? So when you start using that word, got to understand what it is that you're dealing with and understand exactly what it is you're defining and what you're classifying. That's critical. So I wanted to make certain that you understood that, okay? So we talked about the relevance and we talked about the history, but what I did was I went through what I call the family reunion flow of how you have the narcissistic personality disorder unless you have the personality disorder. And you can't have a personality disorder unless you have maladaptive personality traits. Maladaptive, significant impairment and stress as a result of those personality traits and being inflexible. So you have to have personality traits that birthed a personality disorder, and from the personality disorder, then out of that is birthed narcissistic personality disorder, and from the narcissistic personality disorder is now the narcissist is birthed from that. So basically you got the son, the father, the grandfather, and then the great-grandfather, okay? So that's the lineage, okay? Narcissist would be the son, narcissistic personality disorder would be the father, and then you would have personality disorder being the grandfather, and then the maladaptive personality traits would be the great-grandfather. So that's the lineage, okay? How it went from being, how personality disorders were classified in the DSM-4 versus the DSM-5, how it's 10 personality disorders, and how in the DSM-5, personality disorder which belongs in cluster B, and how it shares a space with other personality disorders, and how typically people that are considered to have a narcissistic personality disorder tend to be emotional and dramatic. But that's not the only diagnosis that they could have up under that cluster. It could also be antisocial, borderline, or histrionic. So these are some major personality disorders that are going on. Talked a little bit about evaluation and how we get to the point that we can even diagnose that. I'm gonna touch on that a lot more aggressively in this episode because I want you to understand the casual nature in which narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder and even a narcissist is presented. It's a lot more heavy than that. And I want you to be able to be open-minded, educated, and really understand the dynamics that all come into play when you talk about not just this personality disorder, but all the personality disorders, okay? So I'm giving you 26 years of clinical experience. I'm giving you 20 years of licensure. I'm giving God my greatest gift. And this has been a year in the work, and so you all get to be the direct beneficiaries of my obedience to God, utilizing my gift. And just as a reminder, if you didn't know, my particular therapeutic approach is blended on what I call taking the sacred and blending the secular. I've said in previous episodes, I believe in taking this book, which is the Bible, using it to influence this book, which is the DSM-5, okay? So this is the sacred, and I use the sacred to help me be able to interpret this. I am a faith-based clinical practitioner, and in a world that is increasingly denying God, I will not deny my God before man, for I know what he has done for me in my life. And so I stand proudly to say that I am a Christian, born-again believer of the Most High God, and I use that to help me treat those that come to me who want healing. Every day as a practitioner, my prayer to God is to give me sight beyond sight so that I may see the unseeable, and that he may give me hearing beyond hearing so that I may hear the unhearable, so that I may use my mouth and words to speak the unspoken and to speak life where there's death. Truly saying these dry bones indeed can live. So that's just a little bit about me and a reminder, and couldn't think of a better way to end the season than just reminding you of the very thing that I stand for. And that helps you better understand my approach to what I do clinically. I have my own practice, Valiant Therapy. Feel free to look me up on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. Send me a friend request. You know, we family. Be more than happy to share the journey with you in mental health and making it where it's really approachable and making it that it's really understandable. And we even love to work with you if it's your wish and God's will as well, okay? So what I wanna do in this episode, I wanna close it out and close it out strong, okay? So now that we've talked about personality traits and we talked about personality disorder, now we're gonna talk about narcissistic personality disorder, okay? Now we're gonna get to the part that everybody's been talking about, the narcissistic personality disorder, okay? And the narcissistic personality disorder, remember, is a part of cluster B, based on the DSM-5. It's cluster B as far as the personality disorders, okay? And typically, any of the personality disorders that are associated with cluster B, these individuals tend to be dramatic and emotional, okay? Over the top, doing way too much all the time, just always doing disorder. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna give you the definition of the narcissistic personality disorder in accordance to what is listed in the DSM-5, this purple book right here, okay? Give you the definition of what criteria a person has to meet by definition, but then I'm gonna go over be considered when you're talking about a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, of the 9 criteria that's presented, a person has to meet 5 out of the 9 criteria in order to have a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, okay? And then I'm gonna bring this thing right on home. We're gonna talk about prevalence. We're gonna talk about some of the cultural and gender implications, which is gonna be very interesting. And I'm gonna bring this thing right on home, and then we're gonna close out season 7, and I'm gonna share a couple of words with you, and we're gonna let God have his way utilizing this gift and this platform. So, all right, narcissistic personality disorder, okay. Definition of narcissistic personality disorder is as follows: a pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 5 out of 9. For my people in the back who came late, the definition of narcissistic personality disorder is a pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more out of 9 diagnostic criteria. Okay, so let's break that down. Basically, when you talk about a narcissistic personality disorder, what you're saying is has a need for admiration that's just very extreme. Now, I want to caution us with this definition because what I've seen happen in my practice is when somebody comes in, oh, my husband's a narcissist, my wife's a narcissist, my son's a narcissist. There's a natural need that we have as human beings for admiration and for the acknowledgement that you need from the people that you love. It means everything in the world to you. And I can say that as a husband. There's certain things that my peers can say to me that doesn't move me one way or another. But it's just something about when my wife says something to me because of who she is to me, it just carries weight. carries weight. So that need to want to have that does not mean that a person is a narcissist or narcissistic. What we're talking about is excessive. Can't share the spotlight with nobody. Can't be happy for nobody. It's always something. And to be honest and transparent, as we go through these criteria, if you don't know, we're based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Atlanta has a lot of moving and shaking that it does. But as I was doing my research, what I saw is that Atlanta itself could really meet the criteria of being a narcissistic city based on these criteria. And when you read it, when I read it to you, when we go through it, you'll be like, because a lot of that stuff is, some of the stuff we see here, it's a little extreme, you know, being seen, wanting to be, you know, top in everything. There's no room for nobody else. And it's an interesting dynamic here we have in Atlanta, but I'm sure other cities, because this is a humanity thing that we talk about. So I want to make certain that you understand the criteria and everything that's involved, okay?
There's a decline in blood donations. I don't know if you guys know, but there are some people who are not even able to get blood transfusions because it goes by priority.
We need to make sure that we have, you know, at least a 5 to 7 day supply on our shelf. But realistically, right now, we're in a blood shortage. So we only have a 2-day supply to give to our patients.
Severe weather can strike anytime, anywhere, but there's a simple way to stay safe. Hey, Jim Cantore here. I stay safe in dangerous weather by planning ahead. You can stay safe too with a few easy steps. Build an inexpensive kit with supplies for your family's needs, and remember any pets in your planning. Be ready, be safe. Start your plan today at ready.gov/plan.
People are truthful online more, or maybe not so much?
There's a lot of filters that women have. There's a lot of things that you really don't know that person until you actually meet them in person.
So in other words, you guys are being catfish.
Definitely.
So we went over the definition. We went over the definition. So now what I want to do, I want to give you the 9 diagnostic criteria. And of the 9, 5 have to be met, 5 or more, okay? And if we're going through this, check yourself. See if you kind of meet this. Kind of see, okay, well, maybe I might be the narcissist. And I'll touch that a little bit later. Since we're busy diagnosing everybody else, let's diagnose ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Let's just be fair. So the first criteria out of 9 for narcissistic personality disorder is has a grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements, okay? Now, this one, again, the reason why I say you gotta be mindful about how you go about diagnosing and how you use these words so casually, because a lot of what we hear, this can be interpreted very subjectively. You know what I'm saying? And it also depends on certain cultural and a grandiose sense of self-importance, expressed to be recognized as superior, exaggerates achievements and talents. That can go couple practitioner is really the best way to go, because somebody can genuinely not care for you, and because you just have that anointing or that favor all over you, they can say, oh, you're a narcissist because you don't go to eat with your coworkers, or because you don't go here with your fraternity brothers or with your sorority sisters. You know, you think you're better than everybody else, and you won't even be thinking to slide that in. But what we're talking about here is an extreme thing. You know what I'm saying? Just an extreme thing in terms of a need for admiration. We have a need for admiration from the people that we love. For admiration is affirmation when it's in a balanced and healthy way, okay? Lack of empathy is really the biggest thing that comes out. Don't care about anybody. And so that lack of concern of just your human, your fellow human being, just that lack of empathy when you just don't care. And when you want to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Look, if you go to college and you get a degree, You want to be recognized for that, as you should be. You get your master's, you get your doctorate, you become licensed, you get certification. Yeah, by all means, be proud of that accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with wanting it to be recognized, but not to the point that we think we're better than somebody else, okay? If you know a little bit about me, I often share that I come from the West Coast by means of Los Angeles, Compton per se, and I used to joke and say, I'm just an educated hood rat. You know, I have the education, I could flow with the best of them. I've rubbed elbows, but I've also had to train them in clinical modalities and approaches. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't make me a better person. I'm very, very, very well aware every day of where I came from and where God has brought me from. And because of that, I stay humble. But on any given day, if you put me in the right environment, or a certain environment, I can make an adaptation to make sure I can hold my own there. But at the end of the day, it's by God's grace that I'm here. So depending on the individual, it just depends on how they see you or whether they may see you as having. That's completely, again, it's completely subjective. So that's why you need to come to an objective. The criteria is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty. Times about what I see on TV, a lot of the reality shows, the Real Housewives, real this, real that, and it just seems like it's just not enough air in the room for everybody. And so there seems to be a preoccupation with fantasies of success and power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. It's a preoccupation. That's all you talk about. That's all you do, and you will orchestrate your life in such a way to do that. You know, and sometimes being honest, you know, living in a city like Atlanta, I've seen this before, where part of Atlanta, drive a particular car, we'll look the spot and then go home and open our refrigerator and have grits and butter in there. My special education teacher, Miss Sandra Roberts, used to always talk about that. And she used to always say to us, don't go by what you see people have as an indication of what you think that they own. Because somebody can be driving a Mercedes-Benz and go home and eating noodles every night just to keep up with that. So when you're committed to that level of projection, of imagery, definitely something to be concerned of, okay? So again, preoccupied with fantasies of a limited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. That's number 2. The third criteria is believe he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. Let me read that number 3 again because that's gonna hit a little hard. Believes he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. Now, let me be real with it. Again, living in a city like Atlanta, as long as I have, you see a lot of this in our city. You see a lot of people that, based on where you went to school, you automatically segregated into a particular demographic, where you went to school, even those that are Greek affiliated, even myself being Greek affiliated, I know that circle all too well where automatically if you are a member of Kappa Alpha Psi versus Omega Psi Phi, automatically people have a opinion of you, okay? Automatically because of where you are associated with. And sometimes in your circles, educational institutions, okay? If you went to a PWI, which is a primary white institution, versus a HBCU, you're seen a certain kind of way, okay? So automatically it's a matter of sizing you up based on what you've done and what your strengths are. And if you're in that circle and you think that you can only talk to other people that are Greek affiliated, or you can only talk to other people that are Holy Ghost filled, or you can only talk to people that went to a HBCU, or you can only talk to people that, you know, pledged a sorority or a fraternity. If that's the only people that you can interact with, then that criteria right here might be identifiable for you in that context, and nobody else can understand what you're saying. Or if somebody is saying something, you dismiss it because, you know, you may have a master's and a doctorate, and because they didn't go to college, you think that that lessens what they have to say, which is his attitude to have. Because all it takes is God's, you know, thinking and moving his pinky finger, and every bit of knowledge you had can be removed in a stroke or a car accident. So you be very careful about having those type of mindsets. The criteria of a narcissistic personality disorder, people that only believe that they can be understood by other people that associate with them in their circle, and they believe that they're special because of that. They're always the exception to the rule. The standards ever apply to them. I think we've seen certain individuals, certain politicians that I won't name, that has shown this in their serving time in office. We've seen that. Okay. All right. Criteria number 4 is requires excessive admiration. Okay. Again, this is completely subjective. What's excessive admiration? You know, hug and kiss and be affectionate. That's fine. That's not, I don't see anything wrong with that. Excessive is when you take up all the air in the room. Like nobody can come around and have time with anybody because you always have to be the center of where you go, even among strangers. You just require excessive admiration. Now, if that's not your thing, you can't go around and say somebody has a narcissistic personality disorder because you just aren't an affectionate person and that might be how they are. Or because you forgot your anniversary, you forgot their birthday. Well, see, it doesn't take all that. And no, that doesn't make them a narcissist. That just means that you dropped the ball and they're hurt by that, okay? So excessive is just, again, absorbing it from everybody in the room. Nobody else can get anything because that person just always has to have the attention all the time, okay? So that's requiring excessive.
Today, man, we got a real one for you. We coming with some of these braised oxtail. Nice and tender.
Which hip hop artist would you say shows up the most in your sermons?
Mostly I use R&B music, really. I do go lean that way, but a lot of Nas. When I hear something, it goes to a lyric, so it might not even be a specific person. My Easter sermon was "Can't Keep Running Away" by The Far Side.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was my sermon. And then but then like people in the Generation X era, they hear that. But if you don't hear it, you just keep on going. So I do kind of like, I kind of put that in my sermons in ways to kind of draw people in who might have grown up like I did.
Number 5 is has a sense of entitlement. For example, having an unreasonable expectation of wanting treated better because of their expectations, okay? So again, a sense of entitlement. Okay, just because you enter the room doesn't mean that everybody has to stop what they're doing and recognize you. Okay, now I do believe in certain things being in alignment in terms of a marital and family dynamic. I will say that, but I'm not addressing it from that regard. I'm just saying that you walk into the room, people acknowledge you, but you know, you can't change the television, you can't make a suggestion for something else for dinner simply because you just walked into the building. So having a sense of entitlement, just an unreasonable expectation of being favored, okay? So that's criteria number 5, okay? Stay with me, because we're gonna finish strong, okay? Criteria number 6 is interpersonally exploiting of others, is interpersonally exploiting of others. And basically what this says is people who take advantage of others in order to achieve his or her own ends, okay? So when you exploit people simply to get ahead, case in point, and I can't help but think of kind of how things happen in a Black Greek dynamic. If you know somebody will be a member of your organization, and they may have something that you desire. You like their car, you like their tie, like a suit, something, whatever. If because of what they have, you exploit that unreasonably, taking advantage of what they have in order to achieve what you want, then that would probably meet that criteria and that dynamic. So again, interpersonally exploiting of others, okay? That was number 6. Number 7, lacks empathy, which is basically defined as a person being recognized or identified with the feelings and needs of others. People that just don't care about how you feel. Don't care about it. And it's funny because in the society that we live in, particularly on social media, it's amazing how many videos get likes for being so extreme and just being so rude and being so crass. I don't understand it. You know, I've had to have prayer with God about that and just understanding that, you know what, that's just not my audience. I get it. That's your thing. Use your platform. That's your freedom. But just to be rude to people and unkind, that's just not my thing. That's not what I promote in my life. I don't promote that amongst my children. My wife and I don't promote that amongst our children. You know, if you want to get checked real quick, you know, let your tone be out of order with a sibling in our household. And we're going to be very big and very quick to check you in terms of how you check our children, rather, on how they interact with one another, because how they act at home is going to be how they act in public. So just be empathetic. So a person that lacks that empathy, that's unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings of others and the needs of others, that's also a part of that dynamic there that meets that criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Then number 8 is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. You see that a lot in this world. You know, people who just can't be genuinely happy for other people. You know, somebody get a new car, be happy for them. Somebody, you know, get married, be happy for them. Just be genuinely happy. We live in a world where people struggle with just being genuinely happy for people. You know, one of the things that I do is oftentimes when I see somebody that has a drive-out tag on a car might be an older model, but I thank God when I see people that are driving vehicles that have the drive-out tag, even if it's an older vehicle, because they were praying for that. That was a blessing for them. And so I'm thanking God that I get a chance to see it, so that I know that if I ask him for something because I saw somebody else get blessed and I'm happy for them, he's going to bless me as it relates to that. But oftentimes the world we live in, it's just, you see people, it's just difficult for them to just be happy for others, you know, just being envious, okay? And then number 9 is to show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes, okay? Show arrogant or haughty behaviors or attitudes, okay? So those are the 9 criteria, okay, that I gave you that according to the DSM-5, have to be considered when you're talking about a narcissistic personality disorder. And of those 9, 5 have to be met out of 9. So, overwhelming evidence has to be there for the 9. So remember, you can't have a narcissist from the narcissistic personality disorder. They have to meet 5 out of the 9 criteria from a clinically trained mental health professional. Not Google, not something you see on Instagram, not something that you see on Facebook. Okay, that's not considered a credible resource. Is it provocative in thought? Yes. But when you start using certain words, just want to be certain that you understand what you're saying and what you're summoning, okay? Now, what I want to touch on as far as narcissistic personality disorder and drive it home, I want to talk about prevalence. Now, here's the thing. Narcissistic personality disorder, based on the DSM-5, which is our most current model that we use as far as our referencing, our manual. You have 0 to 6.2% of the world population that actually has a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, DSM, which is composed of medical doctors, psychiatrists, licensed, established, tenured therapists, people that have been doing this 20, 30, 40 years, make up this book, okay? They're saying between 0, which means considering it might be nobody in the world that really has it, up to 6.2% of the world population. So right now, this is about 7 billion people on Earth of the 7 billion people, 6.2% may actually have a narcissistic personality disorder. So you think about how casually people use the word narcissist, it'll make you kind of look a little differently in that regard. So I think that's important for us to consider, okay? Now, excuse me. In terms of development in course, here's what's interesting. Guess what population shows the biggest demographic regarding narcissistic personality disorder? Teenagers. Yes, the DSM-5 stated that in course, the demographic that shows narcissistic personality disorder tendencies that end up being adult personality disorders, teenagers. I can believe that. I mean, I love my 4 children, but sometimes they can be so self-absorbed. They can. I love them, but we stay on them in our house, and I know y'all probably stay on yours and your homes, but you got to stay on them because they can be so self-absorbed that the things that we do as parents, and I don't know who this is for, I'm a parent as well as being a husband, sometimes the accommodations that you make for your children, it sends the message that the world's going to be accommodating for them. When I went to college, whatever they served in the caf is what they served. Unless I wanted to go spend the last $18 I had on something, I just ate what they had, and I was grateful and thankful for it. So in your desire to be an accommodating parent, just make sure that you're not generating an environment of self-entitlement as it relates to our children, okay? Now, gender-related diagnostic issues, something else that the research supports. Narcissistic personality disorder, they say 50 to 75% are male. Now I can hear some women saying, see, I knew my husband, my boyfriend, he was a narcissist, see, I was right. Hold on, look at what the research is saying. 50 to 75% are male. Now that means out of every 4 people, a minimum of 2 are female as far as narcissistic personality disorder. So for males, it can be 2 to 3 out of 4, but it's guaranteed to have at least 2 out of the 4 be female, okay? So basically, it shows you right there that there's some gender dynamics there that lets you know this is not a male-dominated thing per se. There could be a leaning a little bit more towards male demographic, and we recognize that in the research. But in recognizing that in the research, we have to also look at the numbers empirically and say, well, in all fairness, out of 4 people, at least 2 gonna be female, and 2 to 3 gonna be male. So that lets you know of the gender dynamic, okay? Now here's what's important. I speak to my population about what I call differential diagnosis. What diagnosis is. A differential diagnosis is a diagnosis that could also be considered because a person meets the criteria, okay? Like say a person, people come to me and say, okay, I'm depressed. I'm suffering depression. And I listen, but then they don't meet the diagnostic criteria. But oftentimes in my population, what I really find is that people have what's called an adjustment disorder, anxiety or depressed mood. So they'll come in and say they have depression, don't meet the criteria, but it's really an adjustment issue. You're having some problems adjusting to a new job, kids, possibly relationship transition. It was an adjustment disorder that had some glimpses of anxiety or depressed mood. A depressed mood is not the same as depression, but we'll touch on that in season 8 because I'm going to address depression just the way that I'm doing narcissistic personality disorder. But a differential diagnosis, you can present this, you meet the criteria for depression, but you also meet the criteria for adjustment disorder. So letting you know it's 2 different kinds, okay? It's 2 different type of criteria that could be met. So it's saying that it could be a different diagnosis. That's why it's called a differential diagnosis, okay? Now, in summation, what we went over in these 3 episodes is what a narcissist is and what it isn't. Remember, you can't have a narcissist unless they have a narcissistic personality disorder. You have the narcissistic personality disorder unless you have the personality disorder. And you can't have the personality disorder unless you have the traits, personality traits that are maladaptive, leading to a person having in distress. If that doesn't happen, you just can't jump to narcissists, okay? which is why I reference that as a pop culture mental health term, because everybody wants to talk about a narcissist, okay? How do we diagnose narcissistic personality? I do. My peers do. Those that are credentialed to do that are the ones that would be able to give that diagnosis, which is a rare diagnosis because it's a personality disorder, okay? It requires clinical evaluation, not a Google or social media diagnosis or evaluation, a clinical evaluation. In the process of gathering information to establish narcissistic personality disorder or any of the personality disorders, it's very extensive, and it comes from people who are familiar with the person's cultural background, okay? So it can't just come from you, it has to come from so many other people and just getting that information in that aspect, okay? So we want to consider a person's culture, their ethnic background, also the things that make them who they are in that context. That's important when you talk about any type of personality disorder, because we could say as African Americans, as black people who are formally educated, at one time we would have been seen as being narcissistic because of the pride that we have as a people. But if you look at what our struggle has been, we have to have that pride because it's a self-sustaining thing in that aspect. So it depends on who the person is and what their motivations are, okay? So that's it. We've taken 3 episodes to go through this, and this is the final episode for season 7. And I just want to say, again, just thank y'all so much for just your support, man. I love y'all, and I don't use that word lightly. I love you all, just for what you've been and for who you are. All praises to God for just the path that he's taken me through, and just a word of blessing and encouragement to you all. But a lot of times what I tell my patients is I would never tell them something to plant in their own field that I haven't seen a harvest for in my own. A lot of times in life, we look at situations that happen to us and they're painful, and we think that we're being punished. But I always want to challenge individuals, because I live by this myself. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's God getting you ready for something else. It's God exposing some things. So whatever you're going through, whatever pain that you're experiencing, take a moment and just ask God, what do you want me to see in this? What in this that you want to birth out of it? Show me where you are in this. And just being willing and open to that and that dynamic, because I promise you that's therapeutic in and of itself. So it's not about pain, it's really about preparation, okay? And it's not about obstacles, it's about opportunities. When you face something that's difficult and you seem like it's resistance, instead of looking at it as an obstacle, it's an opportunity. Opportunity to see God move, an opportunity for you to see you didn't even know that was there. So I speak blessings over you all. I speak blessings, 100-fold, 1,000-fold blessing to you. I pray that as we end season 7, as we transition for season 8, I pray that you will recognize that this is your season, that God is indeed leaning towards you, that he is leaning in your direction, and that this is indeed your season for favor, to reap all that you've sown, all the goodness that you've given the people when you felt slighted, for the times you felt overlooked, but you kept giving and kept serving. I pray that your season you're entering, and I pray that Sound Mind and Hope TV had a major role in that for you. I pray the same prayer that Jabez prayed. I pray that God bless and increase your territory, and that his hand will be on you, and that he will touch everything that you do and bless it, that will come to you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And as always, as I do in every episode, it will only be right to close season 7 in the very same way. I pray that the Lord bless you and keep you, that he make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you, that he turn his love and smile and countenance towards you, indeed blessing you in your going outs and your coming in, that he give you the peace that surpasses all understanding, and that he give you shalom peace. I pray the very prayer that Abraham and Lot said when they separated. I pray that the Lord watch between you and me while we are away from one another. I'm Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist. This has been another season of Sound Mind. I thank you so much. I love you from the bottom of my heart. And I will see you in season 8. Take care, be blessed, and we're going to do it again. Hopefully, y'all will be in studio for season 8, but we'll see where God wants to take us. I love y'all. Take care, and we'll see you season 8. Bye.